All right, good morning. This is Jeff Orrock here at the National Weather Service in Wakefield with the August 3rd Monday briefing. Going to be talking about the weather here for this week. I'm going to be a little bit unsettled here, a little, off and on for a few days. We'll kind of walk through the weather pattern here. We'll kind of step through day by day so you can kind of see what's going on with the fronts and why things are so unsettled. So for this afternoon, we actually have a little bit of a weak cold front that's going to start pushing its way across northern Virginia, western Virginia later this afternoon, probably get into central Virginia this evening. Here's a weather map for right around, I'd say, 8 o'clock this evening. So see that front getting right into central Virginia and a little bit of a wave of low pressure along that front. And so that's going to bring us a chance for some showers, maybe even a few storms, especially central Virginia, and get up into parts of Maryland, Eastern Shore later this evening and overnight. As we push through tomorrow morning, you notice that front makes its way down to Hampton Roads, might sneak just a little bit south of the North Carolina Virginia border there. But again, you got this little wave of low pressure that kind of rides up out of North Carolina and kind of comes up here into Southeast Virginia by Tuesday morning. And then if you notice by Tuesday evening, the system's lifting back to the north almost as a warm front. Very, very, very slow, but basically comes through central Virginia later this evening, goes into maybe northeast North Carolina, and then starts to come back by the time we get into tomorrow evening. And by the time we get into Wednesday, again, still hasn't moved a whole lot, kind of parked right along central Virginia there. So going to keep things unsettled, keep some rain chances in the forecast. By the time we get into Thursday morning, the front does wash out. You see kind of this high pressure offshore, and we do remain muggy, probably just an off and on chance for showers, even into Thursday. For Friday, again, the pattern really doesn't change a whole lot. We don't have a front as a focus anymore. We just kind of have this Bermuda high offshore. And so we should be drier, maybe just with a few hit and miss showers by the time we get late in the week. And for the weekend, again, the weather pattern doesn't change that much, maybe just some low chances of showers and storms. And the Bermuda high kind of becomes a little bit more dominant in our weather pattern, even into early next week. So that's what we're looking at. But basically, this weak front is going to come through here, stall out a little bit, and make things a little bit messy for us here for the next couple of days. The good news is there is no severe weather risk for the next couple of days. We just have general thunderstorms possible just due to the humidity and the fact there is a front in the area. So you may get a rumble of thunder here and there, but there's no severe weather expected. So that's good news. There is a little bit of a risk for heavy rainfall. This is just a level one marginal risk for heavy rain, and that exists for today, tomorrow, and notice how Wednesday it shifts a little bit further to the north, the south side. Hampton Roads and northeast North Carolina are not in that risk for Wednesday. But for the most part, next couple of days, could see a few little pockets of heavy showers here and there. It's not a washout. Not everybody's going to get in on the heavy rain. It's just going to be, a burst of rain in some areas, and we'll kind of walk through that here in a few minutes. Uh, as far as kind of looking at the areas while we're talking about maybe potential for heavy rain and some flash flooding, this is what we call our flash flood guidance. And so this is, kind of gives you an idea of the areas that have seen some heavy rainfall over the past, week or so, and areas that, based on the saturated soils, you could get a little bit more flooding a little bit quicker. And so areas where you have the greens, especially, that's where your flash flood, is down to about maybe an inch and a half to 2 inches in an hour. And you see a lot of the areas here in this kind of this medium shade of blue. That's about maybe 2 inches or so in an hour. So for the most part, it's going to take about a good inch and a half to 2 inches in an hour to get us any kind of flash flooding. And you do notice the areas that have received the rainfall here over the past, the heavier rainfall, I'd say, over the past several days has really been across central Virginia. Richmond sitting right here. And then once you get north of there, parts of Chesterfield County, actually, this is downtown Richmond here. Sorry about that. Here's Hanover County getting up towards Caroline. So this is the area here that's really seen a little bit more heavy rain back towards Louisa. So the flash flood guidance is a little bit lower there, even extending back to the southwest across Amelia, getting even down here towards parts of Mecklenburg. And of course, you see Hampton Roads area. Some good downpours came through there the other day, and a lot of that is urban. You see basically Norfolk, Portsmouth, Newport News, Hampton, where we have a little bit lower flash flood guidance there. Partially because of the heavy rain, partially because of the urban nature of the area. But you see northeastern North Carolina and a lot of the south central parts of the state, flash flood guidance is quite a bit higher, almost as a 3 to 4 inches of rain in an hour. Will take what it's going to take to get some flash flooding there. So gives you an idea of areas that we've seen rain and where we haven't. As far as today, the way things look, Uh, Honestly, the better chance for heavy rain, I mean, maybe potentially isolated flash flooding, is probably going to be central Virginia and north, maybe a little bit into the Maryland Eastern Shore. And that's where we have some of the best chances of showers and storms, as well as down here over northeast North Carolina. But I think the better chance for the heaviest rainfall is really going to be across central Virginia. And we'll walk through that here in a minute. But on average, a lot of folks aren't going to see a whole lot of rain, but we will have those thunderstorms and showers pop up as that front comes through. And that's where we're going to see some of the heavier rainfall. And we'll kind of zero in on that here in just a minute. As far as looking at tomorrow, notice how the rainfall amounts are a little bit higher for tomorrow. This is where the front stalls out down here across southeast Virginia, northeast North Carolina tomorrow morning, but then it's going to lift back to the north through the day. So I think we're going to see some showers and maybe even a few thunderstorms blossoming, I say, from Richmond, especially south and east of Richmond. I think this is the area where we'll see some of the more widespread rain tomorrow. So, today the best risk, I think, is really central Virginia, and maybe just north and west of Richmond. I think for tomorrow, the better threat's going to be early in the morning, Hampton Roads, northeast North Carolina. It's going to shift back to the north and move back into central Virginia for tomorrow afternoon. And you can see a lot of areas when you go back through these tables on your own, you'll notice a lot higher chances of precipitation really across the entire area tomorrow. So a little bit better chance for more widespread rainfall, maybe even a little bit more heavy rainfall. Wednesday's a little bit tricky. I think we're going to see some rainfall around. Right now, the models aren't super excited about Wednesday. There's still going to be a lot of moisture around the area. So we'll see if that changes. But it does look like really, I'd say later this evening and then tomorrow are the better chances of rainfall. And we'll see about Wednesday. Right now, things are trending, suggesting that Wednesday won't be as much. But again, we'll kind of see how that plays out. And on average, I think most folks will get about a half inch of rain, maybe an inch of rain in some locations with this. I think there will be some folks in a few isolated locations that are going to get maybe 2, maybe even 3 inches of rain over the course of the next few days. And what I'm going to take you through here is this is actually the model ensemble, high res model ensemble. And this is showing you rainfall accumulations in a 6-hour time frame. It's kind of rolling every hour, but it's a 6-hour summary. And it's showing you the more intense rainfall. So you kind of get an idea of how this is going to shake out here, best especially for today and tomorrow. So even by 3 o'clock this afternoon, you're not seeing any big bullseyes here of potential heavy rainfall, maybe just a few showers, maybe up here towards Cambridge. We're getting some showers to develop, but not a whole lot going on as far as intense rainfall. As you push through the evening hours, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, especially by 8 o'clock, you're starting to see a few more bullseyes here where you might start getting maybe an inch, inch and a half bullseyes of precipitation this evening. And notice how it's I'd say kind of along and north of 64, maybe a little bit here for 460, kind of along and north of that. And as you go through the evening, it does kind of pick up a little bit. That's that front dropping down. So this is 11 o'clock tonight. May see some pockets of, heavy showers, maybe a rumble of thunder. But you notice here how it's kind of focused in on mostly central Virginia, back from Farmville over towards Richmond, maybe a little north of Richmond, and trying to sneak a little bit into the eastern shore this evening. And you see those kind of the heavier rain kind of locks in there and eventually weakens overnight. So by 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, not expecting to see very many heavy showers going on. But then what you're going to notice as the day heats up tomorrow, we get to about noontime, 1 o'clock, getting into the afternoon. Here by 3 or 4 o'clock, now you're seeing the front starting to light up here over southeastern Virginia, getting back here towards the Lake Gaston and Carr Lake, maybe even a little bit up here to the Tri-Cities, but that front's going to be right in here. And so that's going to start to light up once we get some heating going. I'd say probably by the middle of tomorrow afternoon, maybe even early afternoon, but you're going to start to see some showers, maybe a few rumbles of thunder, and maybe some more intense showers popping up in that area. And you'll see it kind of gradually lift to the north as that front kind of continues to slowly lift back towards Richmond. This is the area here we're going to be watching for, maybe for some of those downpours. So instead of being, Richmond north like it is today, it's really going to be Richmond south for tomorrow. And so this gets us into 8 o'clock tomorrow evening. So some hit and miss, heavy showers really from, Norfolk and Portsmouth all the way back to Emporia, back towards Carr Lake, and then back up to Richmond. That's the area we're going to watch out for tomorrow, for maybe a few little heavy showers. And notice how that does weaken and kind of go away there by the time you get into, I'd say midnight there on Wednesday. So Tuesday night, it really does kind of go away. And this model we don't go out far enough to capture a Wednesday. And if you look at it from a reflectivity standpoint, that was showing you rainfall, the more intense rainfall rates. This is actually looking at what the radar might look like, and it's very, very similar picture here. So this is 2 o'clock this afternoon. Not seeing a whole lot over the area, maybe a few little isolated showers, rumble of thunder over Maryland Eastern Shore. As you go through the evening, 6 o'clock, maybe 7, 8 o'clock, it could form a little bit earlier, but you basically see these little scattered to numerous showers, maybe rumble of thunder there across central Virginia. Kind of lingers through about midnight, even to about 1 in the morning, and then it kind of dissipates. And then as we get into tomorrow, you'll see things kind of light up again now over parts of southeast Virginia, northeast North Carolina. Again, that's about 2 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And again, that's right where the front is. So that front's parked down here now by tomorrow, and things are lighting off, more in the south. And eventually that will start to lift back to the north and back up towards Richmond sometime in the evening. And then eventually that'll kind of go away and start to dissipate. You do see a few more showers coming through up I-95 corridor during the overnight hours there, Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning. Just maybe a few more showers coming up. But the heavier stuff really looks like it's going to be, I'd say, this afternoon. Kind of go back to there, this afternoon and evening across central Virginia. And then for tomorrow, really lighting off in the Carolina, and then also up into southeastern Virginia, and then making its way back to the north. So that's kind of the way it looks like. Most of the rain, I think, is going to occur today and tomorrow. And if you look at this is our precipitation forecast amounts every 6 hours. And again, this is kind of an average. And you do notice the higher amounts, anywhere from a tenth of an inch to a quarter of an inch for every 6 hours is really for today and tomorrow. And you're not seeing as much accumulation on Wednesday. So we'll see how that plays out. But right now, Wednesday's not looking like we'll see as much widespread heavy rainfall as what we could see later today and again tomorrow. Tomorrow does look like kind of the best day as far as, I think, more widespread heavy rainfall potential. Basically, I'd say kind of along and south of 64. And kind of looking at the bigger picture, this takes us on the left all the way through Wednesday night. So you kind of see the average rainfall, basically central Virginia, get into southeast Virginia, and not as much as you get into Thursday through Monday night here on the right, taking us through the weekend. And that's because that high pressure, Bermuda high, starts to get more in control. And so I think I'll be a little bit more hit and miss showers and storms. Right on the edge of the high, you do notice a little bit of a bullseye, maybe a little bit more rainfall north of Richmond and up towards parts of Maryland Eastern Shore. So we'll watch out for that. Maybe right on the edge of that high pressure, you might get an area there where you're getting maybe repeated showers and storms developing in the afternoon, Thursday, Friday, maybe even into Saturday and Sunday. Mainly going to be north of Richmond, I think, and Maryland Eastern Shore. So notice Northern Virginia has more rainfall forecast than, say, the southern half of Virginia. And also back towards the mountains where, again, it's kind of on the edge of that high pressure is where you might start to see a little bit more shower and thunderstorm development late this week and for the weekend. Temperature wise, what you're noticing is, pretty much seasonable. I mean, pretty much mid 80s for the most part. You get that front that does sneak through for Tuesday morning. So you do see some slightly cooler temperatures in some areas, but still in the 80s for tomorrow. You do notice a warming trend as you get into Thursday and Friday and Saturday, because that front's going back to the north. It's going to wash out. Bermuda high is going to be kicking in. So it's just going to be warm, hot, but not hot, but warm and muggy, very seasonable for this time of year. Temperatures upper 80s to right around 90. But we're really not going to lose this humidity. The humidity is going to be here for some time. So just going to be very, very, very muggy. Again, you look at some of these chances of rain here, basically Monday, Tuesday, a little bit into Wednesday. We'll see about these rain chances Wednesday evening. That's kind of a big question mark what those actual chances of rain will be. A little bit here on Thursday evening, but not as much. You're not seeing quite as high a precipitation probabilities. And notice it's lower in a lot of our cities. And really after that, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's just those typical summertime, isolated to widely scattered chances of a shower or a thunderstorm in the evenings and the afternoons, just because it's going to be hot, going to be muggy, going to be, maybe just enough to get a few showers going, but no real washouts by any means. So the best chances of rain really are today, tomorrow, and we'll see about Wednesday. I'm not sure Wednesday is going to be that big of a chance, but we'll see how it goes. As far as our rip current risk, because we do have a decent little southerly flow, we do kind of have this high risk here on our northern beaches, a little bit of a moderate risk here with some lingering waves here in the south. So that's for today, and also for Tuesday. Looks like we're gonna have a moderate threat just about everywhere in the northern beaches, and the southern beaches tomorrow does look like we'll have a lower threat. So the better threat, I think, for any kind of rip currents and rough surf really is today, and does slowly decrease a little bit as we get into tomorrow and Wednesday. Looking ahead beyond this, we're actually going to be getting with that Bermuda high, and really the whole country is getting into a much, looks like a good signal. We're going to be above normal temperatures here. Pretty good confidence here that this takes us from August 8th to August 12th. That a good part of the nation, including the Mid Atlantic, is going to be above normal temperatures. Precipitation wise, not as strong of a signal. Probably maybe normal to maybe slightly above normal probability there, but not a real strong signal for precipitation, but a pretty strong signal there for being warm here for a while, at least above normal. You did hear, if you were watching social media off and on, I mean, the models have been off and on trying to paint some kind of area of low pressure maybe forming here off of South Carolina. That's kind of really been hit or miss in the models. They've been very, very inconsistent with it. So we're not really banking on that. In fact, the Hurricane Center, let me jump to that. They're not really looking at anything to potentially develop in the next 7 days, but you may have heard some clamoring of potential low pressure system developing here off the Carolinas and maybe kind of drifting towards the north or the northeast. But it wasn't going to be much of a threat, even if it had occurred, and the models really aren't consistently locking onto anything. Neither the GFS or the European ensembles are really being consistent. So nothing to be concerned with right now, but you may be hearing a little bit of stuff in social media about that, some kind of potential low pressure along the coast that we're just right now not overly concerned with. Just shifting gears real quick into the marine. I'll just kind of do a quick overview here for the marine. Um, really, today is the windy day, or at least breezy day. I wouldn't even say windy. The orange represents kind of the small craft advisory conditions there. So it is coming down. In fact, we've actually dropped the small craft advisories for the bay. So that was actually probably more representative of this morning. The winds are decreasing here as we go through the day, and the seas are going to slowly start to decrease offshore. And when you look at Tuesday night and Wednesday, you don't really see much color on the map at all. Maybe a little bit of yellow, suggesting some maybe 15 knots of wind, maybe gusts to 20. And that kind of continues into Thursday and Friday. So really not expecting any small craft advisory conditions beyond what we experienced this morning. Looking at the wind directions here, pretty much southwest today. It does decrease as we get through this afternoon and this evening. Notice how the winds do shift and become kind of north and the northeast here on Tuesday. So again, that's that front. The front's going to push down through a lot of the area down to the North Carolina, I'd say Virginia border. And so those winds do kind of become a little bit more easterly here as you get into Tuesday afternoon and Tuesday evening. But then notice by Tuesday night, the winds go back to the south. So the front lifts back to the north, winds go back to the south, and they generally stay about 15 knots or less. As you even get into Wednesday and Thursday, those winds remain out of the south at around 15 knots or so. And offshore, not much different. Had a little bit more wind out there earlier today, but the winds stay southwest, get a little bit of that easterly flow at some of the places there offshore as you get the front sneaking through. But front doesn't really push far offshore, so you'll see some of the stations like the wind farm and stuff do kind of stay out of the south. The wind never really shifts there, so the front doesn't necessarily push too far offshore. So you'll see more of a wind shift in the nearshore waters and over the bay, but getting out over the way out over the ocean, the front's probably not going to make it out there. And so the winds are going to stay out of the south for the most part. With just the locations closer to the coast might get a little bit more of an easterly flow there. And as we go back to the south again for Wednesday and Thursday. And this is kind of just showing you the overall picture. Let me get to the wave heights. Yeah, wave heights, they are coming down. This was actually probably more this morning, showing about 4 to 5 feet. We're coming down to about 2 to 3 feet here pretty quickly here off of the Outer Banks here. I'd say around 3 feet. Getting about maybe 2 to 3 feet here east of the mouth of the bay and coming down to about 2 feet on the bay with maybe an occasional 3 feet. So we're on a downward trend here as far as the wave heights are concerned. And notice how the waves stay, I'd say 1 to 2 feet for the most part for most of the middle of the week. Offshore, same thing. We're going to trend downward, kind of going from about, I'd say, anywhere from 4 to 7 feet, getting down to, I'd say, closer to 3 to 5 feet by the time we get into this evening and overnight. And that pretty much just persist all the way through the forecast, generally about, I say, 2 to 4 feet or so, depending on where you are. You get further offshore towards the canyons, and it's going to maintain about, I'd say, 4 to 7 feet way offshore. But beyond that, for the most part, seas are going to be about, I'd say, 3 to 4 feet, maybe occasionally 5 feet for the most part. So that's kind of it, and I'll go ahead and stop the recording.